This week on IT Sparkcast, Amazon bets on an AI workforce. Zoom has a deepfake problem, and Lou is broadcasting from the middle of nowhere.
Seriously, I am at a truck rest stop in Topeka, Kansas, coming over 5G because I can.
Greetings and welcome to IT Sparkcast. I'm your host, John Barker.
And I'm your host, Lou Schmidt. Does anyone know where I am? Well, that's okay. There's still news, and we're going to talk to you about it.
It's Friday, June 20th. IT Sparkcast News Bytes is a digest of the news over the last week with insights, opinions, and a little sarcasm from two experts, each with over 20 years of experience working in IT or for IT vendors. And now, the News Bytes. All right, our first article is almost a follow-up to some previous episodes that we've talked about, where we talked about Amazon and Andy Jassy and moving everybody into the office full-time, 5 days a week, work from the office. And now Mr. Jassy has come out and said that because of their rollouts of generative AI and the tools that they're using internally, they expect to be able to cut more people and do the same workloads with less. So this was specifically from an article in Reuters, and the tools that they're using as standard generative AI tools that, and as we've talked about, are really good at those routine and repetitive tasks, things that humans don't like doing. They get distracted. They get error prone because of their distraction, and they're going to use more and more AI. And if you're a company like Amazon, I mean, you're going to have the compute power to be able to do this. So that makes sense. And they're not alone. We're seeing similar trends coming from Microsoft, Meta, CrowdStrike, Duolingo, and others, where their CEOs are saying similar. Now, here's the thing. If you've been listening to us for more than 2 episodes, you've heard us say that AI is not going to take your job, but somebody using AI will. So let me clarify that a little bit on what we're talking about here.
This is important.
And we're not saying that AI won't impact the workforce. We're not saying that there aren't jobs that are at risk. We're saying that let's equate this to when robotics entered the automotive manufacturing industry. And the big uproar was everybody was going to lose their job. So what happened, though, the net result of jobs in the world, in this case the United States, went up. Now, certain jobs went away or were reduced in the number of people that were required, but it opened up new opportunities. So the message that we are saying to you is that if you're not already using AI, LLMs, whatever it might be, as part of your day-to-day work habits, you are way far behind at this point. You're at least a year and a half behind your competitors. And the competitors are the people that are going to take your job. So that's why you need to be using these tools. Now, again, trust but verify. AI can make mistakes. I was just talking to my son about that this morning, about having him use ChatGPT for things. He said, well, it gets things wrong. I said, well, Wikipedia gets things wrong too. So just trust and verify and move forward. But it can reduce the amount of effort, especially on those repetitive tasks. And this is not something that I'm at odds with Andy Jassy about. I've been at odds with him on a few different things, but in this case, he actually did emphasize that new emerging roles in software development, AI oversight, workforce transformation, and others will come from this. So it's those menial tasks. It's the digital equivalent of screwing in bolts into a frame that just, it's not a fun job. It's not something you'd want to do. It's not interesting. You're going to get distracted and you're going to make mistakes. Let the AI do that. And then you can do something that's much more interesting.
There's one more thing you've got to watch for here, John, and everybody on this cast, right? And that is where I'm seeing the biggest impact of AI currently. And remember, it's early days yet. We're going to see even more impact over time soon, is on the entry-level jobs. And you would say, oh, okay, that's great. Who wants entry-level jobs? Well, I don't know.
Gotta start somewhere.
Trying to get into the business. So when you're using AI to do your stuff, try to get through your entry level by using AI.
Yeah.
Right. So when you present yourself to an employer, they say, what are your skill sets? Well, part of your skill sets are all this grunt work stuff. Yeah. I farm that out. That goes out to the AI. So that's really important. But we're seeing that the trend line seems to be holding about where we thought it would be on this. Something to be aware of.
Now, moving on, this is another follow-up. We had a discussion about Google's announcement of Google Beam earlier, and they've released some pricing. So, Lou, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So Google Beam, just to refresh you, is a really it's a project that came out of Google to do sort of a pseudo 3D representation by using AI, of course, to sort of understand the position of your head and your eyes, so that when you duck around and you're looking at the screen, it's taking enough data from the far end that it can make a very, very convincing 3D look. Now, the user feedback on this thing so far has been astounding. Folks who use it really like it. And I am trying to get my hands on one of these. I'm not going to be able to get a unit, but I'm going to see if I can get into an office with somebody who has one when I travel back to California in August. However, they just announced the pricing. And this is a little bit, I think this is going to be a challenge because they're selling each node at $25,000. Now, the question becomes, and Hewlett Packard is going to be the hardware vendor for this. The question becomes, is that $25,000 list price, and then you stack a bunch of reductions on top of this? John and I have both sold in corporate environments. Who plays list price? 25 is hot, right? Because you've got to buy at least 2 of these, and you have to pay a yearly service fee. This thing is coming out later this year, is what's being said. So I personally think that they need to get the pricing down to the point where you can put this in somebody's home office. If they do that, then this thing is going to be wildly successful. But that is going to be sort of the Rubicon. John, what do you feel about this?
Yeah, so honestly, the price didn't surprise me a whole lot. I do think that it's a no-go for a lot of situations. We were thinking of this as something for remote workers, for others, that so they could feel more connected to the individuals. But you're not dropping a $25,000 device in every one of your remote workers' homes. Maybe the CEO gets it.
You drop 7. It comes with a 65-inch display and a big camera array, and it already works with Zoom and Meet. So
yeah, so we made a bet the last time we talked about this that this was not going to actually become a popular device. It wasn't going to sell well. I'm still feeling that way. I don't see that there's any way that at this
I'm
price.
I'm going to lose the bet unless they drop the price.
And I'm going to argue that it's got to be under $5,000. And now the thing is that HPE is the current vendor, but they're not the only vendor. This is going to be an open technology, and lots of others could use it. And so maybe the competition will start driving price down. Maybe we'll see more efficiencies made, because it's hard for me to justify where that $25,000 is going, unless it's for those first initial rollouts and there's a white glove setup treatment and things like that. But usually deployment is priced separately than the device. So and you are all well aware of this if you're in IT.
Yeah.
There's the cost of the device and then the cost of deploying it. Yeah. So I think that this is a no-go. This is a non-starter for this at this price. We'll have to see how it goes, but
we'll keep an eye on it.
We will keep an eye on it.
You have something really interesting. Speaking of video.
Yes. So we've had a situation recently where a hacker organization out of North Korea called BlueNoroff had actually impersonated IT personnel via deepfake technology. They sent notes out to companies, to people at companies via Telegram saying, hey, IT needs to talk to you. Jump onto this. And they actually said it was a Google Meet link, but it actually redirected them to Zoom. And, then we'll help you out. Once the user got on, the user had audio problems, and that they thought that they couldn't be heard. So the IT person, and I'm using air quotes, IT person, so the hacker, directed them via text, via Telegram, to install this patch. Now, that's where the trouble came in, because that patch was a malicious link. Now, in this case, they were specifically targeting Mac, but there's no reason this couldn't impact any other operating system. And then the user said, Well, I'm talking IT, so it must be okay to click on that link and install that piece. And then boom, they were owned.
This is a very clever social engineering hack.
It's very clever. It's very clever. And I think that this is the kind of thing, again, that, we've talked about training your folks on. We see a lot of companies doing training about phishing emails and things like this. This is like super specific hyper phishing. So I would say that this is the next thing you need to start training people on, because this is in the wild. This is happening. And there are, people that have been impacted by it. And if you hit the wrong person and they have access to the right data, then your company could be really bad shape. They could be really, really.
So I got to say, my recommendation at this point, as both a user and as an IT provider, whichever position you're on, if you get somebody contacting you saying, hey, there's a problem we can help you out with, do the equivalent of, can I call you back? Right? Using the official corporate system, like whether it's video and you don't recognize the name, go search your directory on the, does that person exist? On the flip side, if you're in IT, you need to warn your people that this is out there. And if you weren't contacted by somebody, whatever way you want to verify this, you need to warn them.
The other side is, why Telegram? And was that the default messaging application for that company? And if it was, why was Telegram chosen? It's a bit more open. And this is the time when I'm going to actually say, use Teams, because with Teams, you can't get an external, unless they've hacked into the system, you're not going to get an external actor sending you messages via Teams. They might call your Teams phone number, but they're not going to be sending you messages through Teams and sending you links through Teams, unless there's some other security problem.
Well,
that should be true of Zoom as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at alternative messaging systems, at a previous company, I had somebody suggest that we move to WhatsApp for certain messaging. And I was like, I don't want any part of that. IT would cut my head off if I did that. No, thank you. And so you got to be, try to understand why you're using these tools. And if you are, what are the security ramifications of it? And if you're using Telegram, is it possible that just any random person could send messages to your staff? So just be thinking about that.
Hey, I found something else that was difficult.
Yeah, let's go talk about it.
Okay, so absolutely surprising nobody who's ever paid attention to business models over the past 30 years. OpenAI is now having challenges with working with Microsoft. So apparently what's happening now, and this is going to impact you because Microsoft is using OpenAI technology for a lot of its Copilot stuff, is my understanding. They're also a major investor in the company, which means they have a big voice. But OpenAI really wants to go their own direction. So they've been partners since 2019, believe it or not. And they're definitely having disagreements right now over the AI collaboration. So OpenAI is seeking to reduce Microsoft's control over their AI products and computing resources, and Microsoft owns a big enough stake in this that they need Microsoft to buy in to become a private company, which has been this. If you've been following the AI space in OpenAI, you know that there's been this constant fight. They want to bring it all, as much of it private as they can, but it was originally founded to be open. So there's a huge amount of tension there, not just with Microsoft, but with other partners. I'm sure you've heard Musk rant about it, and there's something to it. Microsoft wants a larger stake in OpenAI, right? So it wants the public benefit corporation to be more like what it originally said, and it really wants to continue using OpenAI technology. So there are definitely antitrust considerations here. Compute and cloud access is absolutely another issue. Who's going to host this? What are they going to run? What's it doing? So let me net this thing out for you. Just keep an eye on this. If you're using Microsoft services, this could impact it if things go south. Now, I like to believe that because of the business nature of this, that it's less likely that it's going to go completely sour. But it's not like we haven't seen a lot of big egos in the AI space. It's the cutting edge. It's the big thing, and people think that they are, they're going to do what they're going to do. Sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can't. John, what do you got on this?
Yeah, so I think this is interesting, and I think this is a power move. And I think that OpenAI is feeling pretty pumped about where they are right now, and they're pretty confident in their future, which I think they should. They really are the lead here, and they across all of the different tools. There are different tools that might make images better or might do other things better, but there's no argument that OpenAI is not the lead for AI and LLMs in the industry. Now, Google's catching up. Apple's far behind. Microsoft really isn't doing a whole lot, at least that they've announced publicly, on building their own. They've kind of bet on OpenAI, and maybe that's the right bet, maybe it's not. But I can definitely see Sam Altman and OpenAI wanting to stretch their wings, get some autonomy, and not be under the control of anyone. Now, the only interesting thing is on the political side, just going back, if you remember, was it a year and a half ago, when the board fired Altman and Microsoft effectively came to his defense and basically helped him get his job back. You could argue that there's some potential loyalty that should be seen there, but loyalty only goes so far when it comes to running your company.
You have billions of dollars, right? Who would you consider the top three right now? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I would say OpenAI, Perplexity, and I would have to put Google in third, but I think they're a distant third. But again, somebody like Google, you can never count them up. They can always catch up. We'll do another rant at some point about Apple and how
well, yeah,
they are.
They're just waiting to see where the dust is going to settle before they do anything, and then they'll co-opt whatever comes. That's how they work, right? Speaking of AI,
yes,
there's another development that I really think. So here's another thing: if you've got all your dogs on OpenAI or whatever, this next thing may be something you really want to think about. John, do you want to bring us in on that one?
Yeah, so a company called Uptime Industries, and we got this from Computer World. They've unveiled a new server system called Lemony. And what this is it's a stackable device that lets you run secure private generative AI without cloud or internet connectivity. So there's two sides to that. One is you don't need connectivity, so you could run completely local, and you are running it yourself on your own, theoretically secure hardware and secure environment. So they allow you to run it comes preloaded with multiple different large language models that includes Llama 3.1, Llama 3.2, Mistral, and IBM's Granite models. So they're supporting up to 5 users per node. So, and they can be connected via LAN or directly on a PC connected to it. And then it is stackable and it scales via that interconnect, and it's stacking, if you will. So the interesting thing on this is there are legitimate use cases for working on-prem with no outside connectivity, although I feel they are much more limited than a lot of people claim. So there's a lot of people saying, I don't want my data.
There's a lot of defense research going on right now, and there's going to be some organizations operating under financial constraints that are going to be very, very leery of moving any data, because nobody's ever heard of a cloud getting breached, right?
Right. So I mean, there are legitimate issues. I'll give you a very classic one that I've worked on, not directly, but as people on my team have worked on, is submarines. So there are periods of time where submarines physically cannot access outside networks. So this would be a case where if you needed an LLM model running on a sub while it's submerged, well then you would need something local. And there are other ways to do it. Lou's got local LLMs running on his MacBook. I mean, you could definitely do it. But
this feels an awful lot like that, but turbocharged in a way.
What it is that this is kind of a hardware as a service play. So you are getting the hardware. It's a subscription. The subscription starts at $500 a month. That's for a single node. which again, it supports up to 5 users, and then they bill that annually. So I assume if you want to go month to month, it would be more, or maybe they wouldn't even offer that. But again, think about that. So that's basically $10 per month per user, which isn't bad. That's not bad. But then you got you got your cooling costs and electricity costs and things on top of that. So it's not for free from that standpoint. But and if you want to scale out, you got to have the place to put it. You have to have a data center that can support, if you want to support 1,000 users, then you're going to need, 200 of these, right? So, that starts to get pretty big pretty quickly.
Yep.
Now that would be concurrent, I'm assuming. It's not 5 named users, it's 5 concurrent users. So 1,000 is a lot at that point. If 1,000 concurrent users for an LLM would probably support a 10 or 20 or 30,000 person organization, I'm guessing.
This sounds like it's targeted at sensitive work groups.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see this emerge in the market, because I think this takes, yes, you can run this stuff on a sufficiently powerful computer. I'm sure a lot of folks are rolling their own, getting NVIDIA 5090 graphics systems, or the A series, A10, A100, whatever you have local. But this gives you sort of an ability to do a compartmentalized work group or functional deployment with support.
Yeah.
Which is important.
Now, what I think will happen, I'm not familiar with Uptime Industries. I don't know anything about them. So I can do some research to figure that out, but I would also suggest that anybody looking to buy this should definitely do your research. But I think what will happen is if they're successful to any degree, then you're going to see the big players come in. And there's lots of different players out there that are, that they have business models and whole divisions focused on local compute. We know Cisco does that. We know HPE does that with GreenLake. There are a bunch of others. Dell obviously would be in that.
Well,
they may start offering this type of solution themselves. And then that's when I think you start seeing a little more
NVIDIA themselves could jump into this with something like a slightly tweaked Project Digits box.
Sure.
I mean, that's
scaled out even bigger. So so maybe it can support more than 5 users. But.
So yeah, I think but it's good to see the movement in this market finally. It's
absolutely,
and we're happy to see that. I think that's about what we got.
Yeah, and that is going to wrap up today's episode. We do want to hear what you think. Is this something that you would be interested in? Can you think of other purposes for having on-site compute for AI purposes where you're not accessing the cloud? Maybe it's because connectivity just doesn't exist very well, or isn't reliable for you. Maybe it's something else. Maybe this flows back to what we talked about before about the reliability and resiliency of cloud services. So let us know what you think. Send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com or hit us up on X @itsparkcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, leave a comment down below. We read every bit of feedback and comment that we get. We respond to most. If it's particularly insightful or entertaining, we will read it out on our Friday News Bite episode next week. And then you get to hear your name out there. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications to make sure that you never miss a single episode. And with that, we're going to turn you back to your day. From the world of enterprise IT, take care.
Thank you very much.